We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
And welcome back to another episode of the Golden Blocks podcast, the Bearcast, where we run you through all the Cal Bears news you need to know about. But unfortunately, there's not a lot you need to know about.
Run for your life.
Run for your life. Run for your life. Run from a bear. What do you do when you see a bear, Andy? Tell me, please. You're the camping expert, so I wanted to ask.
There's a variety of things. Number one, if you see a bear in the wild, you should, or any creature really, other than maybe like a mountain lion. A mountain lion, you just need to bounce. Those things are crazy.
Or a cougar.
Yeah,
like
cougar. Yeah. Just get out of there. But in general, make yourself as big as possible. If there's sticks, make a lot of noises. If you have flashlights, you can kind of shine lights really quickly. And then worst case, if you have a revolver or gun, or I don't, that's not, something I'm interested in having, but I hang out with a lot of people and camp with a lot of people that do, and it's helpful, except the one time when we fired the shotgun into the tree and the bear just stood right there and looked at the person, was like, okay, what else do you got? We're like, oh, yikes. So
cool story, bro. Show me what you got.
Yeah.
But transitioning from that, we wanted to just extend our thoughts, prayers, condolences, anything we possibly can to anyone affected by the fires up here in Northern California and in Southern California. For 45 minutes to an hour worth of podcast and get your mind off of that if you're affected, and just give you some entertainment of any sort. We hope that we can provide that for you.
Yeah, and thank you to the service of the firefighters, emergency personnel, and everyone in California that has opened up their homes or their resources to other people. It's amazing to see the community rally. It's been a really hard time. And then Alex Netherda and, of the Cal family, and to have to go through this a second time and evacuate. And I know my aunt and uncle up there are going through the same thing again up in Santa Rosa. So it's, all the best and thoughts going out with them. And, hopefully we start actually thinking about solutions to fix this. And then there's a whole, other thing going on where everybody here is going, losing power. Unfortunately, my power didn't go off until after the Utah game, but
was that a blessing or a curse?
Curse for sure. I mean, you're like, I don't want to belabor, I don't want to take away from the point. So we can talk about that in a little bit, but yeah, all the best to, if anyone's listening, we appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely do. Just know that we're thinking about you. And there's no other way to transition from that, but I will pivot into us talking about the Utah game, and some of it not really. But before we begin, I have prepared us a beverage of alcoholic selection. Andy, you want to explain what the beverage we have in our hand is?
All right, so we have a 12-ounce, 5% alcohol,
100 calories,
craft brewed, not really, but
gluten-free.
Actually, it's gluten-free. It was done with a brew pure process
of natural flavors.
Yeah, the finest natural flavors. Mango White Claw.
This is my first mango flavor.
Oh, Mango's unbelievable.
Yeah, and this is why I got this, because I know we were talking about this, and you were like, Mango's the best one. There's no other better one. So
Mango White Claw is, don't come at me with any Trulies, Bon Vives. I had the grapefruit last night actually at the Lizzo show. Garbage. Mango White Claw is.
But you heard us open it, so for all the people listening, cheers to Cal Fan Weekend.
Gumbe.
That means cheers in Korean, by the way. Andy speaks better Korean than I do at this point. All right, let's get right to it. The Utah game. I figured.
Wait, what? We're talking about this?
Yeah, we're gonna get it all out of the way. We're gonna get all the way. Then we're gonna answer the questions, because there's not a lot of questions that have to do with the game. There's just separate. So I figured let's get the Utah game out of the way. Then we could talk about looking forward and all this other the better stuff, quote unquote. That's relatively better. So I'm gonna toss it to you. I want to see what because we didn't watch this together. So I wanted, but we were texting throughout the entire game. So I kind of want to know your thoughts, what you felt, what emotion are you feeling, anything about the game.
Did you bring a hammer to the podcast?
You did text me and ask me to bring you a solid punch to punch you in the face with.
Yeah. So your choice. Hammer, good solid fist to the head. I'd say, how do I feel about the Utah game? Imagine just getting hit in the head with a hammer for over an hour and then losing all your power. So that was my Utah game. It was terrible. I mean, and it was just like different. It was, it just felt different. Compared to like the Oregon game where we were kind of like equally, not equal underdogs, but pretty heavy underdogs in that matchup. And it's crazy, dude. There's so many questions. There's so little confidence that I have that we will win any games the rest of the year.
Wow.
And it totally throws all of that optimism that we had about the program. I think like everything has kind of like come unraveled, and it forces you to reset. Like I'm still super in, obviously, on Wilcox. That hasn't even approached, my train of thought, but I'm not sure. I mean, I guess like let me come back. Sorry, I'm kind of like I really didn't want to talk about this game, but I think that this game really, there wasn't anything about the game. Like I don't care about getting shut out. It wasn't surprising. It was sort of what I was expecting. And so my reaction to a lot of it, like I don't ever turn off Cal games, ever. And I stopped watching in either with a lot of time left in the fourth or some time left in the third. At some point, I just started playing Borderlands. I was like, I can't waste my
Well, you also tweeted out, does anyone want to play Borderlands?
Yeah. And then my power went off right as I started playing. So, but it just sort of like, we knew, I mean, the Oregon State game was the one that unearthed the world's largest issues. I think the biggest thing for me that was the most frustrating with the Utah game is like it seemed like we actually schemed against Utah. Like we schemed with our personnel, which is exactly what you and I have been asking for, is like scheme to monster strengths. Like don't run these like zone reads when your entire O-line is hurt. Like adjust to it, get your quarterback out of the pocket, run some play actions, and do different style of runs with your running backs. Get them moving before the handoff rather than having them have to go from a standstill. And then we started to see that. And then it just sort of felt like, oh, it was too little too late. So I think like if you're going to put a theme on the Utah game for me, it's just too little too late.
I mean, that's pretty much nails the hammer on the head, right? There's not much you can talk about. Like the defense came out, so we win the toss, we defer. And then the defense comes out and they go 3 and out. And I'm thinking, oh, like, okay. I mean, that first possession gave me so much hope. I was like, okay, the defense has come to play tonight. And then after that drive, the entire team disintegrated. Like after the first drive, it just totally disintegrated. The offense comes out, and I think the first 2 drives or so for the offense actually was pretty decent. Like they were running. What did I write down? So one of my points that I had written down was like the offense was the most creative it's been all season, perhaps over the last 3 years, in terms of play calling and overall like play sets of how many different things we called. We called screens, rollouts, play action bootlegs, play action, just regular other play action plays. We also freaking pulled out the Wildcat. Like, what? What? Where the heck has this been? And that's the bigger issue. And Adams made a good point to me on Twitter, because I was talking and saying, if you wanted Beau Baldwin out, sure, you could have wanted out. But this game and how he called it wasn't the game for you to switch your emotions of going from, let's see what he can do, to I want him out. But then Adams' point on Twitter to me was, if he can pull these plays, right, and call this type of menu of a game, why hasn't he doing that up till now? And if that's the case, I saw it from the other perspective, and I was like, that makes more sense, right? Like, it makes more sense for you to be more upset that these plays were in the playbook, but you weren't using them up until this point, and even more so damning his like just offensive coordinating, quote unquote.
I kind of have a theory about that, and that is that they aren't in the playbook. And that
these are add-ons you're saying that happened this week, or not all of them, but
the way that he talks about having and I forget exactly, I'm going to butcher this, but I'm confident in you being able to fill it in. But the style of offense that Baldwin runs is called like pro something.
Yeah, it's like pro spread, or like something along those lines.
And the way that he basically described it was that it seems like you do 1 to 3 styles really exceptionally well, and it's a high level of execution around that, and it's a lot less of the scheming to the individual or the opponent. It's kind of like you go out and almost like like our defense, like we encroach our will, but we shift our defense a lot. So it's not, never mind, ignore that point. But and that's sort of what I feel like is like this week we just threw shit up on the whiteboard. Yeah. And like it's always a really bad business strategy, so I'm not surprised that it was bad.
But a couple things stuck.
Yeah.
A couple things worked, at least early on.
Sure. But I think it's like so far outside the scope of what Baldwin would prefer to be doing that like all you're seeing is like the holy shit, we lost to Oregon State. Well, we better like do something different. Like, let's try this. Let's try that. Like, that's why we did everything.
It's reactionary.
Yeah, because we saw everything. Yeah. If you saw like 1 or 2 wrinkles, you'd have belief in the system, or not the system because he doesn't want to call it that, but like you'd have belief in the game plan, and then a couple of wrinkles to kind of loosen things up. But if you're in pure panic mode, like what are you doing if your business is running out of money? You're throwing stuff up on the wall. Okay, discount this, discount that. Can we do this? Can we do that? Is there revenue attached to it? Do it. Like, do everything. We got to save the business. I think that's what we saw.
You saw pretty much a last-ditch effort to try and get something to work.
That's what I mean. It doesn't make any sense, right? Yeah. We haven't seen screens for 2.5 years.
No.
Why were we seeing screens then?
Now we're seeing wide receiver screens.
Wildcat? Yeah. Ashton Davis playing offense?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not like...
Yeah. But that's different, though. That's different. Because the Bears went to Salt Lake City without Kiko Crawford, Jeremiah Hawkins, and Ricky Walker III. Those 3 guys did not travel with the team. So they're already short on wide receivers. And so in order to get some speed, they decided to use Ashton Davis as a wide receiver.
That's crazy.
You were legitimately shocked when you saw that tweet, weren't you? Because you weren't watching the game at that point.
Incorrect.
Yeah.
I had to go get ice because my power was going to get shut off. And I'm so lucky I did.
Yeah. But what was your thought? I wanted to ask you, what was your thought when you saw that tweet of like Ashton Davis is like goes on a streak and is like passing incomplete?
My initial thought was somebody messed up in the press box. I was like, who is doing this? And then I like got the response like, yes, this is true. And I was like, oh, we lost.
We're throwing on everyone and anyone out there possible.
My main reaction is don't get hurt. Please don't get hurt. Please just don't get hurt.
I mean, I'm just going to run through my points that I've written down, and you can talk about any of them, or we don't have to talk about any of them, and then we can just move on. But I just want to get this out of the way because I wrote this down, but the way the game went, like, just no reason to talk about it. But here we go. So point 1, we've had 3 years of QB inconsistency. Can't be mad at the injuries, but not one of the QBs has played consistently, even in a single game. This goes beyond development. Something was off with the foundation of the coaching. So when you have quarterbacks get injured, like, you can't account for that, right? Like, you can't blame the quarterback coach or the offensive coordinator for quarterback injuries in the game. But when every quarterback that comes in after the first guy goes down is equally as inconsistent, like game in and game out, there's something wrong there that you're not, like, teaching the guys properly. And that's not even like development. That's just like one-on-one, like, day-by-day coaching, right? Like, I'm not expecting you to turn Modster into, maybe Ross Bowers of 2017, because that was a pretty good, decent quarterback. Like, but, like, we haven't...
What a low standard did you just say?
I know.
Ross Bowers of 2017?
I mean...
most average quarterback of all time?
I mean, convince me wrong. He's been the best quarterback. That 2017 Ross Bowers is the best quarterback we've seen under Wilcox. Convince me otherwise.
I think
out of the quarterbacks we have, or that we've seen play,
I think you can make the case that Garbers against Ole Miss was the best quarterback performance we've seen
for a single game, right? But I mean, we just haven't seen enough, right?
Yeah,
like we can't say that that's Garbers is like what he was going to be, because he had so many other games of mediocrity that it's like a blip, right? If he played well against North Texas, like,
yeah,
or Davis, like, we can't say that, oh, that's the beginning of it. But I'm taking it as, like, a whole picture. I'm pretty sure Ross Bowers is the best quarterback we've had.
Depressing point number 1.
Yeah. Next one is what we have worried came true. The defense came out after, like, the first 2 drives, looked exhausted, looked like they're like just mentally. I don't want to say checked out, because they're still playing the game and they're playing hard, right? But they're just certain things that it just doesn't look right anymore.
Blown assignments, missed tackles.
Tackling angles are horrendous.
Angles.
Oh, my goodness.
But I honestly think it is more symptomatic of the fact it was like the reverse engineering Sonny Dykes' issue, where the offense is so fast at getting off the field that your defense tires out. Our offense was so ineffective at moving the football that I think our defense just wore down. And against that type of offense, where it's big bruisers up front and then running the ball, and quarterback can make plays. And it just sort of was like, after the first 2 drives, it seemed like the defense got tired. I thought they were with it. I mean, we almost stopped them on that first big, long 99-yard drive. We almost stopped them. I mean, that was the fact that the receiver held on the ball when Davis just like lit him up, and like
that
20-yard amazing catch. And like, I thought we were going to get out of that and be in good field position, and Utah stepped up. And
we dropped them at the 1.
Yeah, it was wild.
Don't get me wrong, that Brandon Smith play to, like, catch it as he's, like, falling over and then, like, make sure he hears the whistle, then drops it at the 1 and then falls in. That was incredible special teams. The special teams in this game arguably was the best performance we've seen all year.
Yeah,
I think so.
Every time we punted, the field goal unit, but yeah,
we didn't get to see Greg Thomas.
It's but I will give credit to Nick for saying this. Like, we're not advancing the ball on punts.
Yeah,
but we didn't see any punts in like the first half. I swear, it was crazy. It was like just touchdowns for Utah.
Yep, they pretty much scored on every time. Every time we punted, they scored.
Yeah.
So. Next one is Brash was as good as we possibly could expect, but he was a freshman who did not look nearly close to being able to compete at the Division I level. Fearless with the ball and throwing, but decision making and timing and distance on throws still off.
He gave him like 1 read out on most play calls.
Yeah.
So it was like
pretty easy. Pretty easy, just in rhythm, but
if it's there, it's there. If it's not, I mean, I guess we give him credit for making the throws. That Jordan Duncan drop was devastating.
Yeah.
That was a great ball.
Yeah.
So it was realistically our maybe one of 2 chances to get into
scoring position. Yep. And that was on 3rd down too.
Yeah, it was a great throw. I mean, I think Brash looked fine for a freshman, and there's reason to like it, but I still think Modster fundamentally has more develop tools, and I think it's just a matter of coaching as to why he's looked so bad.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced that if we had a different coach in charge of the offense, we would be seeing bigger things, just like we saw with him when he was a freshman at UCLA.
Yep. All right, my last point. This is a bigger point of the coaching staff as a whole. All right. But let me preface this by saying I'm still with you on this. I'm still on the Wilcox train. I'm still with him, like, being our head coach, because all the times I've talked to him and everything, like, I think he's the right guy for the job at this particular program. But that being said, we keep hearing about taking ownership and accountability, but we haven't seen that, because this game was beyond execution and game plan. So, like, you and I have been in those press conferences a bunch after these losses over the last 3 years. Every time we see it, we see one of those losses, Wilcox is up there, and what's the first thing he says?
Starts with me.
Exactly. But he says that, but nothing's changed. You know what I'm saying? Like, every time there's a loss that leads to another loss, like, he says that, but nothing changes from that loss to the next loss. Does that, are you with me? Like, do you get what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you that I kind of have a bone to pick with this the press conference stuff. Like, if there's one thing that, like, I could kind of, like, go to town on negatively with Wilcox, I think it is. There's a couple things that relate to press relations. It's kind of like, I don't want to say it's like hostile, but it's so intense when you're going in there during losses that we can't actually really do a good job of asking questions, because it feels like someone's going to come kill you.
Yep.
And so it's kind of creates this, like, weird dynamic where you're like, you obviously want to ask about the offense, but if you do, you're worried that someone's going to come punch you. So
Yep. Like, someone's going to come and just be like, Wilcox is just going to be like, I don't want him in press conferences anymore.
Yeah.
Like, that's the atmosphere that's kind of in there.
And I think that needs to leave, like, personally. And I also think the injury stuff is annoying. And if you're a really good program like Alabama, you can pull this stuff. But when stuff starts to fall down, like, transparency's got to be your friend. So opening up to exactly what you're saying and being like, I talk about accountability, and these are the things that we're going to improve upon to address that, I think is desperately needed. So I think I agree with you. I think the big thing for me was when we played North Texas, I expected Wilcox to come into that press conference and be like, yep, happy we won, but we got a lot to work on. Because that's what he said was it Idaho State?
Yeah.
That's what he said against Idaho State. And he's like, yeah, glad we won. Got a ton of stuff to work on. And then instead he was like, North Texas is a hell of a team, good offense, defense played great. But, like, we're seeing the effects of the defense having to play to win that game. Like, they're tired. Of course they are. They've had to win all of these games in the early season because our offense hasn't been able to do anything. And so I wonder if we sort of, like, leapfrogged our own progression. And I'm just observing all of this as going to the press conference. But this is sort of where I was at with it. Like, when I was driving over here, was like, I wonder if we got away from the sound technical style of coaching because we thought we were ready to go to that next level. We could start doing, like, advanced stuff, and maybe we need to revert back to more of just nailing the fundamentals with this team and, and staying there. I don't know.
I think the biggest thing here is that both of us are still on the Wilcox train. Like, we both want him as the head coach. And the only reason we say these things is because we want him to, like, I don't know what the right wording for this is, but we want to help him get an out. You know what I mean? Like, people keep blaming him for, like, these choices and these decisions, but you're going to get that blame when you don't have transparency. The moment you have transparency, I mean, it's the wrong way to look at it this way, but it kind of is, which is you get excuses. You get some excuses to cover yourself. And if you don't have enough of those, at some point, like, this is, college football is such, like, a result driven, but, like, person also driven sport and, like, I don't know, medium, that at some point you're going to get these, like, high donors, and you're going to get, like, all these people in these positions, and they're reading not only the CGB stuff, but, like, the rival stuff, the scout stuff, like the national guy stuff. And at some point that influences you, right? and you're like, why isn't this happening? Why isn't that happening? But you can't calm yourself down from that, because he's not saying like the necessary things to calm those types of fans down in those press conferences, right?
I think imagine like I'm Wilcox.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, tough game. Starting quarterback has a broken collarbone. Backup quarterback has, like, let's say theoretically,
concussion,
head trauma or something like that. Does that not lend sympathy or empathy your direction by like having that transparency, or like opening up and being like, Travion Beck has been out with, he's our best nickel and one of the best nickels in the country.
He has a cast on his hand, and we can clearly see he has a cast on his hand.
You see it in pictures that they're doing for social media stuff, but we're not talking about it. Like, I remember when I was going through that, and I was looking at this picture that was tweeted out by Cal Athletics.
It was for Eric Stevens, I believe.
Yeah, it was for Eric Stevens. And I saw, like, Weaver had tape on his wrist. So I was like, is Weaver's wrist okay? I saw Travion Beck's arm. I was like, what's going on with that? I think I saw someone else that was hurt. And I was like, it was just like learning about all of the injuries by seeing a picture for Eric Stevens. It's just so stupid.
Like, if you're going to mask everything, do everything in your power to mask everything, right? You can't have these, like, leaked pictures on social media. Like, it's just...
There's a lot of great things that he's done about the program, and I honestly think he has 3 years left of safety. I mean, like, him and, like, the AD are super close. He's involved in the hiring of Mark Fox. He's in the picture today giving Mark Fox Laval's pizza. The graduation rate is at an all-time high. Like, there's so many good things about where this program goes. You lose every game this year. You lose against Stanford. Yeah, we'll be upset, but it won't matter. Like, job security is great. You go out, find an O coordinator, whatever, you fix it. But these are things that when you're no longer winning, it's not fun for us, or it's not fun for, I think, maybe more people than just us when you're winning. And then when you're losing, it's amplified. And it's just one of those things where I agree with you. Like, you come out with the same script, like coach speak. Like, Sonny used to give, like, people would say he did coach speak a lot. And I always thought Sonny was pretty genuine. And then Wilcox was super genuine, like, when he first started. He will just, like, tell you everything except for injuries. And then now it's sort of felt like we've gotten the same script every single press conference this season. And it's really weird because we've sort of played the exact same game every game this season.
The thing with Wilcox, too, is like him on the podium, right? And then him at media availability, like just with some of the local guys or whatnot. Like, not in front of the camera. I guess sometimes in front of the camera because you're on the banner, but those are two different Wilcoxes. Totally different Wilcoxes. And you've seen these press conferences, like, I wish we can translate the banner one and like the off game one, like, into that, because I don't know. It would just help so much, like, to help alleviate some of just like the like fortified look that he's giving off, and this, like, this is us against them type of feel, when, like, you keep talking about the fans, you keep talking about, like, like, you need the fans here and all that, but, like, if you're not being transparent, and those are the only opportunities, like, through the camera, are you going to be transparent and be able to interact with the fans, right? You got to do it there. There's no other place to do it as a head coach. Like, when are you ever going to do it? Like, we haven't had, you know what the funny thing is? We haven't had, like, a fan out under Wilcox. We used to have one every year under Sonny.
Yeah.
Every year. And that carried on actually from Tedford too.
Fan appreciation?
Yeah.
I worked those.
Yeah.
They're super fun.
They're super fun. And you get to meet all the players, like, get all their autographs, like, take pictures, like, do all that stuff. We haven't had a single one under Wilcox.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that is a bummer.
Yeah, it's a huge bummer. And that's a big way to draw.
I'm going to write Jim Knowlton.
Yeah.
I donate $50 every year.
I want my fan appreciation day for my $50 worth. Oh, boy.
I'm a high-level donor.
All right. I think that's pretty much it for the Utah game. I think we should move on. We got some other questions, but there's a big question that I wanted to ask at the very end, and we'll talk about that, and we'll wrap up the show. But for now, here's our fan questions. Well, you tweeted at us with a fan question. Favorite food places in Berkeley? Favorite sports teams? Favorite NAM tweets? anything but Utah.
That was just my thoughts.
That wasn't even a question, though. Those were just thoughts. I didn't know this was notes, not Twitter. And then
Give me at least your answer. Answer the favorite food.
favorite food places. Anything? Jeez, Gypsies. Gypsies is always
That's
good.
your number one.
Man,
Kevin Riley whipped you on that one.
Thai basil.
He had so many good ones.
Thai basil, Gypsies,
Thai basils and gypsies,
La
that's-
Burrita.
I am coming from Norway, and I've just come to Berkeley,
Yeah.
and you're going to send me to Gypsies, as you should have this food.
Probably the Thai basil then. If that's the first thing, I really like Thai basil. I'm a big
Alright.
fan of Thai basil.
Wow.
I'm only going off of the ones that are like immediately in front of campus that like relate yourself to UC Berkeley, like places we used to go when you're in school.
Is Thai basil still like $8?
Yeah, it's like $8-9.
Oh, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But then, like, if you go beyond, of course, there are better things. If you,
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just going places that we used to go to, like, as we, like, walked. You know, some of these places don't exist anymore, or they're new places
Yeah.
there that we go to now, but, like, we weren't there. Well, they weren't there. Like, Sufficient Grounds Cafe.
Honestly, think I would just send him to Top Dog.
That is also a good one. I mean, that's a staple. But, like, it's also just a hot dog. It doesn't feel like a meal if you just have one.
Calabrese.
That's true. Calabrese is pretty good.
What were the other ones?
Favorite sports teams? Favorite NAM tweets?
Yes. I want to know your favorite NAM tweet.
Favorite NAM tweet? I don't know if I have a favorite NAM tweet. There are quite a few. There's a few favorite NAM moments, like when I've seen NAM drunk, and he hates it. He'll never listen to this because he doesn't listen to our podcast, but he hates it when you tell him it's his birthday. He absolutely hates like the fanfare of a birthday, and it was his birthday. We were there at his birthday. He invited all of us to meet him at this bar, and we were there. And every time we said it's your birthday, he would be like, "Shut the f up." Like, this makes no sense. This is your birthday. So every time I see him now, and if you see him out in public, just tell him it's his birthday. It doesn't matter what day it is. You'll get a great reaction.
Like the Dwight Schrute, it is your birthday.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. A guy replied to your tweet. He says, I had artichoke pizza yesterday in Berkeley, and I would say that it is decidedly no longer one of my favorite food places in Berkeley.
Yeah, that was pretty hot news.
Do you know the story of why artichokes is in Berkeley?
No.
So 2 guys that started artichokes out in New York, right? This is the first shop outside of the city of New York. And it's that one on the corner of Bowditch and Durant. The reason those guys came back to Berkeley is because they're from Berkeley. The 2 guys that founded Artichokes Pizza grew up eating cheese board. So when they made their pizza place out in New York, they said the first place they wanted to do it outside of New York was back in Berkeley, because it's from the pizza that they ate growing up.
Wow.
Which is incredible. I think that's a really cool story. I read it, what was it, Berkeley Side? One of the local papers had that piece on it when they were coming in, which was really cool.
Are you still standing by the crab pizza being good?
Crab pizza's not bad. I mean, it's really creamy. There's not a lot of crab on it. I just like the sauce. I love the it's like a rosé or like a cream sauce, like a tomato cream sauce on it. I'm just a sucker for that, which is why I think I like it more than, if I want to pick a seafood pizza, it'd probably be the clam pizza out at Golden Boy in San Francisco.
Clam pizza?
Mm-hmm. Superb.
No way.
Clam with, it's like a garlic pesto they have on it with like baby clams.
Okay, I could see that.
So good. So good. You got one? You got a favorite food place in Berkeley? Top Dog?
Yeah, Top
Okay.
Dog.
Shout out to Young One. Shout out to our buddy Young One, who told us last week he cannot walk by that place without buying a Top Dog. Like every time he walks by, he just has to go in and get one, which is ridiculous to me. All right. Our friend The Dozen, who's a writer on the site, what do you make of Sharman Smith already delivering top-notch 2020 recruits? So if you haven't been following the news, Sharman Smith, who is the new women's basketball head coach, over the span of about a week, secured the signatures of 3 5-star basketball recruits in the 2020 class. In relativity, like for women's basketball, I think 53 out of the top 100 are rated at a 5-star. We've secured one in like the top 15, one in the top 25, and then number 53, the last 5-star. So I want just your, I mean, I haven't seen their tape. I don't know anything about them, but you as an outsider, like when you see that type of news.
I have a bunch of hot takes.
Okay.
I actually, maybe it's just one, but
One
it's
big one.
that I've always felt like Lindsay was holding
Was holding the program back.
yeah. I've always kind of held. She was like, I don't even know how to say it.
Well, she took the
I've always
program.
felt like she had decent recruiting.
Yeah.
She did a good job, but she always, in my mind, killed non-conference. And then when we came into the Pac-12, was like mediocre as mediocre gets. You know, just like average, whatever, 10-10, like always that. Like, and I was always disappointed. And then we go to the tournament, we get one win, get excited, and then we lose right in the second round. That's sort of like my Lindsay experience.
Well, and she also lived off of her Final Four appearance too, right?
Yeah,
that was a big one. That was a big thing for her early in the career.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't mean to discredit like her whole. I mean, she's definitely a good coach. I just sort of always felt like there was this next level, but I never was. Why would I advocate for it? Because we're Cal, right? I advocate for a coach that can get us to 8-4 every year and stay there. I don't care if you can't like go to 9-3. That's fine. I'll take 8-4. Like, I don't advocate for people to get fired that do a good job. Like, because then what happens? You get Wyking Jones. So when I see someone like this, I think first of all, I think it was an amazing hire. And then secondly, to recruit like 3 5-star, I mean, it's great. It's awesome. It's exactly the good news we needed when there's not, much a plethora of great news coming out of Cal Athletics right now.
Great hire.
Actually, Cal Volleyball. Shout out Cal Volleyball.
One loss on the year. Whew.
I think Cal Women's Soccer is doing well. Yeah. And then I think we just signed our baseball coach to an extension in
2024, I believe.
Yeah. So like big money sports, not so hot.
Yeah.
But our other sports, like they're doing great.
Yeah. As always. All right. We got a tweet from our friend Nick here. Honestly, how optimistic can we feel about bowl eligibility? It actually feels like a long shot now.
Bowl eligibility?
Bowl eligibility. I still see 2 wins. I don't know where I would peg those 2 wins at, but it's still in the realm of possibility. Like if I'm just looking at the statistics, we have a shot to win at least 2 of these games. I just don't know where those 2 are coming from, and that's what I can't tell you. But I do feel like we'll get 2 more, and I think that's at this point right now is the ceiling.
So we have 4 toss-ups.
We have 4 toss-ups,
except so. Last week, if you had asked this question, I'd say we had 4 toss-ups left after the Utah game. I think I might have said as much on the podcast.
Yeah.
And so Washington State then played Oregon super well.
Yep.
And I was like, well, that doesn't look as winnable.
Mm-hmm.
And then UCLA played really well. And I was like, well, that doesn't look as winnable. And then USC is, in the top 50 of S&P Plus. Beat Colorado, and I don't know how good Colorado is, but impressive win. And then Stanford with KJ Costello all of a sudden looked better. And then I was like, I mean, if the offense is where it is, we will win 0 games.
Oh yeah,
there's just if it stays where it is, like there's 0 chance. There's no way.
No, I mean where did I say this? Was it on our podcast where I was just like, whenever you start playing a football game, there's never a 0% chance of you losing, right? Or there's never a 0% chance of you winning. There's always like that 1%, like for us, it'd be like the defense shuts them out and then we get like a touchdown on defense. Like the Washington game last year, right? Like maybe that's the way you win a game, but like those types of games come so far and few that like you can't rely upon it. So like, yeah, we'll put it at like 1%, but I mean, these games are going to be hard to win if the offense plays like they did against Utah or against Oregon State.
Yeah, getting 50 yards a game, you're just not going to win. It's just impossible to win. And it's starting to feel like we don't have the bodies and the recruits. And like there's so many questions on that side of the ball.
Yeah.
So the reason why I keep trying to avoid it is because you get really a dark place really fast when you start going there. And so I think we're on the upper side of the most optimistic Cal fans, and the Utah and the Oregon State back-to-back losses were probably some of the tougher pills to swallow.
Yeah, I mean, NAM ranks us as the 2 highest optimistic Cal fans. So, Josh says I'm borderline insane. I don't know why, but I'll take it. Set the world on fire. We have another question here. I don't know if we have time to answer, but what's the biggest pet peeve? Or this person says the biggest pet peeve of mine is if you were the Cal marketing director, what would your strategy be for fixing attendance? And I don't know if that's a long form answer. My one line answer would be win. Like, I think that's pretty much the end of it. Like the other end of the spectrum, we laugh at how bad attendance is at Stanford, but if Stanford wins that many games and they have a problem putting butts in seats, like, and we're still in the relatively, we're targeting the same market, right? Which is the Bay Area market, and they have trouble putting butts in seats. Like, come on, like you can't expect us to put more butts in seats if we're not winning games. I think that's the simplest answer.
And I think it's the right answer. I think the bottom line is like consistent product on the field that is exciting, and then I think you could follow it up with like game times that aren't ridiculous. An 8 o'clock start, a 7 o'clock start. It's just doing a Friday night game. You know, the Friday night game, ASU game, there's probably an additional 5,000 people that attend that game if it's on a Saturday. That's the way I viewed that. And I think we're getting zero help from a conference. But I also think Bay Area sports, like Sharks, my buddy went to a Sharks game, wasn't sold out. Sharks games used to sell out a lot, right? Niners have trouble with their attendance.
Stadium's horrendous.
Now they're
7-0.
So, but and then the Giants, right? The Giants product went down. The Warriors, if the first 3 games are indication of how the Warriors are going to play this year, the Warriors will not have. They'll probably have relatively sold out because of high season ticket seats, but there'll be tickets that are available in the stadium.
Well, and the A's and the Raiders have always had trouble.
The Bay Area is a problem for football because there's so many other options.
Yep.
There's a ridiculous amount of things to do every single weekend, and it's very expensive to live here. So I have to be very smart about where I spend my money. We're not all like lucky enough to have the free tickets to a Cal game, and so I think when it comes into that. I do think Cal can be the premier football team of the East Bay. I see more Cal clothing out there on the streets than I see of any other college in the Bay Area, period. And it's like people, you just like don't expect it. You see it in random areas. So when Sonny Dyke said Cal's a sleeping giant, I believe it. But you need to have a consistent winning product in order to get people out there, to get people excited about it. And that's what this year was going to be, right?
Yeah.
This was Cloud 9 wins. This was the...
the turning point.
ASU, I was able to get so many people out to the ASU game. So we were getting there. It just sort of unraveled on us, and that's kind of the life of a Cal fan.
All right. The last thing that I wanted to talk about for however long we wanted to was this little theme and this like comparison that's been running around our comment section for quite a while now. Is Justin Wilcox and this program so far the defensive version of Sonny Dykes in that era? So, I wanted your thoughts on this, but I'm going to run you through some of like the general numbers first, all right? Where do you think Sonny Dykes ranks in Cal's all-time wins list? As a head coach.
10th?
12th. Pretty close. Right behind Joe Cap. Joe Cap has one more win than Sonny Dykes. All right? And Keith Gilbertson. Keith Gilbertson has 20 wins as well. Right, where do you think Justin Wilcox right now? Granted, he's an entire season behind Sonny Dykes, but where do you think he ranks right now?
15.
Yeah, pretty close. 14, right above Tom Homo. He's actually tied with Homo for 16 wins.
Rare territory.
Yeah. Here's my thoughts on Dykes and Wilcox's biggest wins so far in their career. All right, Dykes' highest rank was 20th in Week 7 of 2015. His best wins are probably 2015 at Texas, 2016 at home against a number 11 ranked Texas, which was probably overranked, by the way. But regardless.
Oh my God, probably?
Yeah.
Indefinitely. If that's your signature win, that's terrible.
Yeah. At UW 2015, at Washington State 2014, that was the game that we got a special teams coordinator fired, the 60-59 win. Home against Utah in 16, they were ranked 18th. That was the James Looney stop at the goal line to win the game with Davis Webb. Yeah. And then Oregon in 2016, which was Jordan Kanasic interception to win the game in overtime against Justin Herbert.
I wouldn't go relive that Oregon game if you gave me $1,000.
All right. Wilcox's highest rank was 2015 in Week 5 of this season. His best wins are against number 8th ranked Washington State in 2017. That was the Friday night bonanza. with like all the sacks and the defensive touchdowns and
That
everything.
was his best win, you say?
That was one of his. UW 2018 when they were ranked 15th, which
Yep.
is
Yep.
at SC last year, breaking the streak as bad as SC was, still breaking the streak, and then at UW this year where UW was ranked 14th in the country. So those are the best wins in my opinion so far. Recruiting stars, Dykes. Jared Goff's kind of a question mark, so Andy and I are kind of just going to leave him off the list, because
he's a Ted for recruiting.
he's a holdover. Yeah. So Devontae Downs 4-star 2014, Eric Brown 4-star 2014, Carlos Strickland 4-star 2015, Jalen Hawkins 4-star 2015, Samisi Uluave 4-star 2015, Demetrius Robertson 5-star 2016, Melky Stovall 4-star 2016.
Stovall miss, Samisi
Kind of
miss.
Jalen hit.
Yeah, Jalen hit, but wait, there's two more other misses that were in that too.
Carlos Strickland
and Eric Brown both misses.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And then Wilcox 4-star, Chase Garbers. That's also a Goff type of thing where he carried over from so we're not going to count him. Will Craig 4-star 2018, Nico Remigio 4-star 2018, Coin Dang 4-star 2018. These are all rankings from 247. I haven't looked up the rivals rankings, but I'm sure there's a couple of other 4-stars in there.
I thought Castles was 4.
I think Castles was rated a 4-star on Rivals.
Okay.
But I just went off of the 247 because their user interface is a lot easier to search. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, one quick thing I'll run you through is, so Dykes went 1-11, then 5-7, 8-5, and then 5-7. Wilcox has gone 5-7, 7-6, and is currently 4-4. So some of the other big storylines with this is that Dykes fired Andy Buh 1 year after that, or after the 1-11 season, after how abysmal of a defense that was, right? Because they were strength of schedule or points against 45.9. They were 124th out of 125 college football teams in terms of points given up per game. So, in terms of, you want the flip side of that? In terms of offense, right now, our points for is 17.4. That's 123rd out of 130 Division I schools. So, that's where we're at right now. I wanted your takes, and is this a viable comparison in your mind?
I guess it's you could. I don't think you could fault someone, I guess, for making the comparison based around record and
like the narrative, right?
The narrative is similar enough. Like I can't hate on it. I don't love making it. I think I guess I'm biased, but I think the program is in better hands. And I think people are giving a lot of credence to Dykes for making the move with Andy Buh, like, and being like, yeah, he pulled the trigger. Dude, we had one win. Like, it wasn't like this situation with Baldwin where we, were a couple of mistakes. Like, you can't even put it on the coaches. A couple of pure player mistakes away from 8 or 9 wins. There's a lot more reasons to go with continuity, despite maybe some evidence that didn't suggest it. Plus, you lost your starting quarterback due to injury, and there was that weird thing with Bowers and stuff. So, like, there was a lot more going into, like, the keep Baldwin. I think even we were, like, on the side of, like, stick with continuity over firing Baldwin.
No, after the bowl game, all of us were like, "There's zero reason for him to fire Baldwin." As much as his performance was like in the gutter, there was no reason for us to reset, knowing the defense and how many guys were going to stay and how good they were going to be coming in this year.
So yeah, exactly, and I just don't. So a lot of people are kind of leaning into that move and being like, Dykes was way faster at, like, being more decisive at, like, recognizing a problem. He had an easier problem to address. Wilcox is looking at this, like, what he said every single week is it's not just one thing. And being as a part, I hate to keep going back to my own, like, career, but when things start to go wrong, it's death by 1,000 cuts. It's never just one thing. And so it's always more complicated. And that's the problem when you have success. That's the problem when you have talent. It's just there's not just one thing you kind of point at. We as fans naturally gravitate towards the offense. But there's a lot of stuff that's happening. Whether you look at like defense not forcing turnovers, we're playing way more of a fashion of bend not break. So I think Wilcox was in a much more challenging problem to solve. The writing is on a little bit more clearly written on the wall this time around, and I think he'll make a move. And I don't necessarily know if that's going to solve all of our problems. But as far as the comparison goes, the biggest issue that I have is when you look at the wins that we had under Dykes. Some of the wins that you even credit to Dykes are the games like against Washington State where we got absurdly lucky that they missed an extra point. You go to the Texas game, they dropped the ball on the 1 yard line before scoring. They would have scored a touchdown. The Oregon game where we were up 3 scores and then blew it all to go into overtime, and we're lucky that Jordan Kanasic came up with the interception, and like both of you and I walked out of that game feeling depressed. Like those are our signature wins.
Yep.
Right? And then in the Wilcox era, we win games our way, and we win it with definition, and we come out of it, and you feel good about those wins. I mean, the Washington State game, we felt great about that win. The Washington game this year, we felt great about that win.
The Washington game last year had us on the edge of our seats, but we still felt good about that one.
Yeah, but it's not this team has such a deficiency and then lucked out. So I think we play much more sound brand of football. And I think addressing the offensive side of the football should, in theory, be easier to fix than the defensive kind of lapses that we had, or some of the really bizarre coaching decisions like kicking field goals as playing as an underdog that we continually saw in the Dykes era. And I'm super glad he's doing well at SMU. It's a perfect fit. I don't think he'll ever leave that job, and I think it's a perfect job for Sonny.
If he ever does leave that job, it'd be for another job in Texas. Mm-hmm. I don't think you don't ever leave Texas ever again. And he's perfect for that area. Yeah, I'm pretty much with you. Like it's just one of those things where, yeah, if you look at the numbers and like the narrative and how the storylines have gone, fits exactly how it's gone so far, right? You're really, really good on one side of the ball. The other side of the ball kind of looks like you're just neglecting it and just like leaving it to the coordinator, and that's your baby. It's pretty much like having like two head coaches, right? Like one guy that's just it's like the ASU CEO model. Like you have a CEO and these guys just doing their job and you're just kind of managing them, which is kind of what Herm's doing, but he's doing a pretty good job at it. And he has a pretty good OC and a pretty good DC. But
except for this week.
Yeah.
I was so sad.
Yeah.
I got so hyped after watching the HBO special.
Yeah.
I need to watch the Mike Leach one, by the way.
Oh, God. Do we need to?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch that before the Washington State game. Yeah, it'd be perfect.
But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where the numbers align, the storylines align, and it makes perfect sense to make that comparison. I'd be very interested if we look back at this after year 4 of Wilcox and just be like, wow, that really was similar, or wow, that 1 year made a big difference. Like, I wonder like where we're going to be a year from now and thinking about that. I know the big thing with Bud too is, from what I heard, it was just one of these things where the donors kind of stepped up and were like, we can't have this kind of performance on our hands, and like was just like, we're gonna help you make a move. Let's make the move. I don't know if that happened here. That's the big thing, because we talked about this a whole bunch of times. Like Baldwin is on a 3-year contract. You know, this is his final year unless we gave him an extension, which I don't think we did. And if we let him go at the end of the year, like we don't have to compensate him for anything. It's just the end of the contract, which is probably why if they're even thinking of making a move right now, they probably won't make the move until after the season's over.
Yep.
So,
yeah, I mean, I think we all like to ask ourselves these theoretical. I mean, yes, at some point, I guess you do evaluate the wins, but to me, there's so much other stuff that's happening. Game strategy and included, and just sort of like who is involved with the program. I think like alumni relations and
is that all-time high?
Yeah, it that stuff matters a lot to me. And it wasn't being handled the way that I think a lot of alumni really wanted to in the previous era. And that's the choice of who's in charge, and that's totally okay. But the optimist in me looks at the end of the season and says we'll get a couple wins and things will be all right. But I really don't see it right now, which is a weird place to be. So I could literally be advocating for us being 4-8, having started 4-0 and losing every single game after then. and still sort of preaching that, we'll be all right. That I think means like there's a lot of faith in Coach Wilcox and the vision he's creating. Dude, that guy understands football like no one I've been around. Period.
Just the sport of football. He eats, lives, breathes that sport.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he seems like a great leader and someone that the players are really bought into. So we will see.
Yeah. One interesting little note on Wilcox, and I'll say this little story to end the game, is like if you go up to him like after any press conference, right, and like you ask him like off the camera and off the record of just like a specific play during the game or like, like a coverage or whatnot, he's more than happy to break it down for you, which is like super cool and like super, super helpful. It's like that Deshaun Watson interview from a few weeks ago where he like talks about, it's like 4 high and, he was looking for this and they dropped down and all that stuff, like cover 4. And, when you were there for a little bit of that coaching 101 thing that he did a few years ago. And that's like, I think that's the type of Wilcox that like I love talking to. Like we learned so much just from like the hour alone, more than like I've done all my studying all this time. So I really wish we see more of that side of the Wilcox. Like it feels bad to me that we're like the only ones that get to experience that side of Wilcox. Like that makes him so much more like relatable and personable, and so much more of like a guy that you're like, okay, yeah, he knows what he's doing. He definitely knows what he's doing. But we'll see if we ever get some of that. But that's pretty much it. We're good here on the Bearcast. If you're listening to this whenever you are, we're recording this on Tuesday, but big thing to note, basketball season starts. Men's basketball starts Wednesday night, 7 p.m. against St. Martin's exhibition game. And then the regular season starts next week.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow is our first exhibition game.
It's Game 7 World Series.
It is, yeah. This game's not even on broadcast. It's not on TV. It's not on radio. The only way you can watch it, if you're not at the stadium, is on calbears.com. They're going to have a live stream of the scoreboard angle. And that's all you'll see. Like you won't get any stats or anything like that, unless you follow us on Golden Blogs or the Rivals guys or whatnot. But yeah, it's basketball season. It's a brand fresh new start.
Yeah, I'm excited to go back to being a fan.
Yeah, and you'll try to make it out to at least one game this year.
No, for sure.
Oh yeah,
I'll be there.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for us here on the Golden Blogs podcast. If you have anything for us, you can always ask us on our Discord channel. It's on the CGB Twitter handle, or you can DM CGB or DM me at Rob11HWANG on Twitter, and I'll happy to send that over. It's been pretty fun. We're doing this thing where we talk on the voice chat for about 30 or 40 minutes or so after every game, so people can join in and just talk about the game, vent your frustrations and whatnot. I'm usually on it, but we're going to try and circulate it so some of the other writers are on it. Maybe get Nick Krantz to be your rational guy talking. But yeah, we have all that set up. You can find me at Rob11HWANG. You can find Andy at
Andy J Beast Mode.
You can find us on Twitter at CGB Bearcast. You can also find us at Golden Blogs, and also all our writing and written stuff on CaliforniaGoldenBlogs.com. We got a bunch of stuff coming up too with basketball season around the corner, and so there's a lot of content for you pretty much every day of the week. So be on the lookout for that. And as always, go Bears.
Go Bears.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.